talking sports now. The match between the Super Eagles of Nigeria and Ethiopians, and George Aluo, who joins us. He was on ground in Ethiopia, and thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure.
So tell us, what was your experience in Ethiopia?
Well, the first experience to take away from Addis Ababa, I must tell you, is this: the kind of support that the Ethiopians had going for them in that game was just too massive. I think that is the best support I've seen anywhere in the world.
Haven't you had that kind of support in Nigeria?
I mean, no, we don't. I can't remember. Something that is close to it is the kind of support that the then stationary stores of Lagos used to have when they were the real Flaming Flamingos, the now disbanded stationary stores. If you know the way stores were supported those days, that is the kind of support. And let me tell you, when you have that kind of support, even if you're a cripple, you will stand up and walk. And that was what was going for the Wala Antelopes of Ethiopia in that game. But you must commend the Super Eagles, because they were pitted against a team that had very, very massive support. They were playing in a high altitude region, and you know what that means. Even when you are walking on the street of Addis Ababa, you will gap for breath. Yeah. And then when you're on the field of play, it's better experience. You need to be on ground. People will say, oh, these boys, how come they were struggling against Ethiopia? But I now understand why it is a difficult terrain for you to play in Addis Ababa. And you now see that is why Ethiopia had not lost a game until the one they lost to Nigeria. South Africa went there, Central African Republic went there, Kenya went there, they all fell. But when you play in that high altitude region, you find it difficult. And you saw it even in the game of our boys. In the last 15 to 10 minutes, the Ethiopians almost got an equalizer, if not for the experience that came into play. So I think the boys really put up a very good performance against the kind of opposition. And things worked out for us because of planning, and that is what we talk about, proper planning. For the first time, we have to commend the government, the federation, the soccer federation, NFF, the stakeholders, the supporters club, everybody, even the players. The players arrived camp early. 4 days they had in Abuja training. Then there was this plan that, okay, arrive on match day, on the eve of the game. We arrived on Saturday morning, had a workout at the stadium. President Goodluck Jonathan paid a surprise visit to these players in their training on the eve of the game. And he told these boys, hey, gentlemen, you must give it to Nigeria. And this was, Ethiopia is not a place where you have a large Nigerian community. Yeah. This is one country that I'm surprised that you don't find Nigerians that much. But because we went with a large number of Nigerians, the Eagles did not lack support. The supporters club were able to match the fans. You need to see the street. On the eve of the game, everywhere was taking over. It was like a carnival. Yeah. So the people were behind their team. Old women, age fathers, children. Everybody was in their national color. So you can see it. You don't have that kind of support going for you in Nigeria. What you have here is people wearing Man U, people talking of Arsenal, people talking about Barcelona. You are not passionate about our national team. That is one experience that I saw in Ethiopia. Everybody out there, if you go to the pubs, if you go to the hotels, everybody was talking about Ethiopia beating Nigeria. And they were all in their national colors. Because if you go to Nigeria, you see people going to the stadium with putting on all manner of dresses. But here, the Ethiopians painted that stadium in their national color, blue and yellow. You can see it. Everybody that came to that stadium wore their national color. So under that circumstance, my brother, even if you are a cripple, you will stand up and play. Even in front of the media stand, the person that was standing in front of us, the Nigerian media contingent, was even a cripple on wheelchair, telling us that Nigeria will fall. You understand? So under that circumstances, the people came out to fight for their country.
Listening to here, I'm just amazed. But was it the support that drove them to attacking the...
Yes, the support. In fact, like I told you, with that kind of support, the players came out fighting with the last drop of their blood. They wanted to win for their country. You understand? They were so passionate about it. So when they came out fighting, you can see it in them. They were fired up by their countrymen. So, but the Eagles were able to absorb all the pressures in the first 20 minutes of that game. Then we were lucky not to have considered that. And you see the kind of fighting spirit we had. See, when Ikpeba played that penalty that gave Cameroon victory, penalty shootout, Ikpeba was already putting his hand on his head even before the referee took a decision that that penalty was no goal. If you remember, when we hosted the Nations Cup and against Cameroon in the finals. Yeah. But in this case, when Eyama had already been beaten, Obabona went on the line and cleared that ball. And the way the Eagles reacted to the situation even made the referee not to give that goal. So you must commend these boys. They held on well, and even when they considered that goal in the 55th minute, a team that hadn't character would have thrown in the towel at that point. But they fought back, and they were able to get the equalizer and got the winning goal.
Someone actually said it was the Ethiopians that called for the water break, not even the Super Eagles.
Exactly. So actually it was the referee that called for the water break. And that tells you that when you are playing in that region, but the impression we had was that it was going to be very hot in Ethiopia. But it turned out to be very cold and windy.
Yeah.
In fact, I went to Ethiopia without a jacket. But just before the game started, it started raining. 30 minutes to the game, it was raining. Then the rain stopped, and the weather wasn't hot. So at least our players enjoyed it.
All right. But they understand the Super Eagles were stoned and Igebo was wounded.
I must tell you this, that the Ethiopians are very friendly. There's nothing to take away from them. But you understand the situation. When you are beaten, naturally the fans will react. You don't expect anything less in the football game, especially that's such a high-profile game. But come to look at it, anybody that was in Addis Ababa will tell you the way the Nigerian team celebrated after that victory. We were inside that Olympic stadium dancing, and their police gave everybody protection. They ensured that the Nigerian contingent was protected. And when we were leaving the field, we all left in one piece. But then there could be some fans throwing stones here and there because they were naturally disappointed. The town went to sleep immediately after that game. So our players were stoned. The bus which took them, the players left before the entire contingent left. Okay. So you could notice that because the entire Addis Ababa, not just the stadium, I must tell you that all open spaces, you had fans in their thousands watching in big screens provided by government. So in the process of leaving the stadium, they would have hurled missiles at the players. But that is to be expected in such a high-profile game. That does not take away anything from the Ethiopians. Before the game, after the game, their police ensured that Nigerian party had maximum protection.
Okay, we're just a few days away from the second leg. Now, what lessons can we draw from that game?
The first thing is that Nigerians must change their attitude. After what we saw in Addis Ababa, we must, I am here in my green and white jersey, and if that is the first lesson to take away from Ethiopia, I think it's something we must draw from. The kind of support you get when we play even in Calabar is not the kind of support, is nothing compared to the kind of support that the Antelopes got from their countrymen. So Nigerians, we must queue behind our national team. We must give these boys the kind of support that we saw the Ethiopians give them, the kind of support the North Africans will give their team. You saw the kind of support that Burkina Faso got against Algeria in their home game. You don't talk about that when Nigeria is playing. If we don't play well, if our boys don't score in the first 10-15 minutes, you start booing them. But when you motivate, when you cheer, like the late Ernest Okonkwo will say, when you cheer and spoil your team, you are motivating an action. But when you celebrate a goal, when a goal has been scored, you are just reacting to a goal that has been scored. But this is the kind of support that will bring out, we're talking about the kind of support that will bring out the best in a team. That is the kind of support we should be giving our national team. These boys are ready. The Antelopes were fired up because of the kind of support they got from their home fans. So that is the kind of thing Nigeria should do to the Super Eagles. If you go to Abuja National Stadium, Calabar, yes, the crowd will be there. If you go to Abuja National Stadium, people will even be asking you to come and bring taxi to take them to the stadium from their homes. You can't get 5,000 people into Abuja National Stadium, even when the Super Eagles are playing. When last did we see a crowd that was massive at the Abuja National Stadium? So if you take the November 16 game to Abuja, the place will be empty. But even the Calabar Stadium, the people are just coming there to see when the Super Eagles will score, not jeering the boys, not urging the boys on to go out and get it done. Yeah, we should cheer. We should support these boys. Because if not for the doggedness on the part of these players, they wouldn't have survived the game in Ethiopia. I must tell you, the boys played and played very well. For them to have held on, I saw the game myself. I was there, and the high altitude is a difficult terrain to play.
Okay, Judd, well, we're out of time, but one last question. Keshi, at the end of the match, said that they're going to play the Wale Antelopes as though they have never played them when they come for the home leg. Now, how should that game be approached? Some people have talked about the midfield not being what it should be and all that. So how should we approach this game?
We should approach it as if the first leg has not been played. Because the Antelopes that I saw, they are coming here determined to see if they can still get something out of that game. So we won 2-1. The game is in our hand. We are one step very close to Brazil. But we shouldn't begin to celebrate as if it is all over, because we still need to concentrate and get a result at home.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. We're speaking with Judd Aluo, roving editor of the Sun newspaper. He was in Ethiopia and he watched the game. But we're prepared for the second leg in Ethiopia, yes, here in Nigeria. And hopefully it won't be in Abuja, but in Calabar.
Don't confirm for the UGSON Stadium in Calabar.
It's confirmed?
Yes.
All right, so see all of you in Calabar for the second leg of the game between the Nigeria Super Eagles and the Ethiopia's Wale Antelopes. See you shortly. Sunrise Daily continues.